Hi, I'm sitting here with Alex Mashinsky, who has just been on the main stage speaking, and he has had a great round of applause and a great conversation. And actually, you were asked to stay on longer, so I'm very happy to have you here speaking to me. So we were talking a little bit before we went on camera about, actually, if you don't mind me saying, it's almost like a civil war we're in between the traditional financial institution and blockchain. Would you mind giving a little more of your opinion on it?
Sure.
Because I think we've all seen the video by now.
If you're referring to the Nouriel Roubini versus Alex Mashinsky at the Milken Institute, that
yes.
was quite a brawl. We were at it for an hour, and the referees didn't even step into the ring. It was gloves off from minute one, and I think again that conversation represents the battle, the war that's being really fought between the centralized world and the decentralized wave that's coming, right? Mm-hmm. So the centralized world, you have 700 years of banking and institutional money that's created some of the largest financial companies that ever existed mm-hmm. in the history of humankind. Many of them are bigger than countries, right? They have more GDP or profits than countries. Mm-hmm. And those companies, all they care about is extracting as much value out of the community and keeping the monopoly in place as much as possible. So, I often go around and ask people, who gives banks all the power? And they say, oh, it's a government or it's a central bank. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, it's you. You make a deposit and that gives them all the power. You stop giving them deposits, they have no power whatsoever. So decentralization is not an improvement or something a little bit better than the bank. It's a completely new system, right? It's external to the banking mm-hmm. system. It's external to anything that has been built before. And that system basically says, stop putting your money and assets into a fiat world where the government just keep printing dollars and devalue your hard-earned cash, and put it into a system where there's a limited supply where you could be safe because over the long term, all those fiat currencies are going to be devalued against the crypto world.
So you say that moving forward, we all should actually go into the crypto world fully flunged. Would you say that the transition, should that be a smooth transition, or would you want us to kind of almost cut it off and say, you know what, we're going to jump into this world. Businesses should make a stance between either the current financial traditional world and the crypto world?
So look, every person or every company has its own risk tolerance, and you're always going to have early adopters. I think the crypto world went through 3 waves of innovation. You had the anarchists who came and said, we're going to blow up the world. Then you had the libertarians who came and said, we're going to save the world. And now you have the tourists, the speculators, who came in and said, where is the money? I want to own the world, and we basically, and they're now all leaving because they found out that it was not about the money, it's about
yes.
the community.
Yeah.
So each person has to look at his holdings and decide what percentage of his allocation should be in a safe reserve with cryptos, right? Because mm-hmm. If I'm right, and we're going to have a black swan event in which all of these fiat currencies are just going to collapse and lose most of their value, the only non-correlated asset that you could actually rely on are these cryptocurrencies. So this is more about kind of risk management and about your tolerance for volatility, because obviously the crypto world is not a stable environment. It's very volatile, mm-hmm. but it's volatile because it represents the uncorrelated risk.
So do you think that the cryptocurrency is a direct translation of what we've experienced the last 10 or 20 years with, the financial economy not doing that well, kind of being a little stagnant, where either, as you said, the tourists, they're kind of looking for the next big buck, or do you really think that it's just because the technology is here that, we're opening our eyes up and we're wanting to adopt it? So it's kind of between, jumping into a response to what has happened in the last 10, 20 years, or because it's actually just appeared today?
So I think we are, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, right? But we're here to replace the system. So it's not an incremental solution. It's a revolution. It's not an incremental solution, right? And the reason I'm saying that is that if you look at the internet, for example, the internet dismembered. If you were in a shipping business, or if you mm-hmm. were in a retail business, or if you were in a, it completely changed your business. Mm-hmm. Banks don't even have a scratch from the internet. You show me a scratch on a bank from 25 years of the internet. So those institutions got bigger, stronger, and that's why when you deposit money with them, they pay you less than 1%, and they turn around and lend it to that person over there and charge them 25% on their credit card. So the audacity that you can make that much profit away from your customers, right? These are your customers.
Yes.
Or like in the United States, one of the banks opened 20 million fake accounts.
Yes.
Like you would never survive as a business if you did that in the internet world, right? So the banks are basically saying we're so powerful and we're so dominant that we can do anything. We can get away with murder, right? And we're never going to go to jail. 2008, just in the United States, $20 trillion worth of asset disappeared, went to zero because of the collapse of the real estate market and everything else. Not a single person was held responsible. Not a single person from the banking system went to jail. 2009, a year later, banks were paid record bonuses because they were manipulating all of that collapse and making more money. So it's, you flip a coin, it lands on heads, the banks win. It lands on tails, the banks win too. So what I'm saying is that the new system, this crypto world, is not here to create competition from the banks. It's here to replace the entire economic system. Think of it as a new economic model, right? It's 700 years of centralized economics being replaced with something that is very, very different, that is focused on the size of the community and what's in the best interest of the community instead of asset accumulation and asset creation, right? Value creation, so which is what we live today.
Yeah.
So we are, you know, we wake up every morning and we work for this pyramid where our job is just to extract as much value as possible and deliver it to our boss, who does the same thing and delivers it to his boss. And the guy at the top collects all the value, right? He extracts all the value out of the pyramid
scheme, basically.
Yes. And we want to replace it with a world where, that's why our logo is a circle, because in a world that is inclusive, where the measurement is about how much you contributed to society versus how much you took out of society, I think that's a much better world to live in. And that's what crypto is trying to deliver. Maybe we're not explaining it too well to the general population, and that's why we have less than 50 million active users out of 7.5 billion, right? So there's a lot more that could be explained to really bring that mass adoption, because crypto is doing everything in your best interest. It's never, it's interest that never, you know, against what you need every day.
I think what you're talking about, like user adoption, there's been a lot of talk about what is blockchain. Is it the next like kind of .com boom and bust? Will that come? But if we kind of put that aside, the entire speculative past, and we look at user adoption of new technology, blockchain is still in the early stages. We're not even at the early adopter stage, arguably. So what do you think would take to push users over that step? Is it to kind of prove cryptocurrency is in the best interest and fight back on social media and mainstream media over the ones who are speculative what blockchain can do? Or is it something else? What should we be doing as a community? It's
a great question, and I appreciate you kind of putting a pin in that on that issue, because it's definitely something that we don't talk enough about. And I had a slide about that during my presentation. It talks about the early adopter phase. So we had, like, I showed two steps, BTH being the first step, ETH being the second step, and then crossing the chasm metaphor, where you get to the mass adoption. Most companies fail. They fall into that chasm and they cannot get into mass adoption. And so we are stuck right now. We don't have a killer app. I went through the internet boom, and I was lucky enough to write the original VoIP patents and wrote the VoIP protocols. And today over 1 billion people use it every day. 6 billion people have VoIP on their phone. So I've seen that adoption, and the minute you had the Netscape moment, the minute you saw that browser, you knew exactly what you had to do, right? And that came in '95, just about a year after I created VoIP. And we haven't had that yet. So Bitcoin is 10 years old, which by internet, by the time it was 10 years old, had like 300 or 400 million users. And here we have less than 50 million active users, and we don't have the killer app.
Yes.
So we have thousands of companies, right? Thousands of them, trying to figure out what is that killer app and how we're going to create mass adoption, so we can leapfrog over from the early adoption phase to the mass adoption phase. And so that is really something that bothers me a lot, and that's why really I created Celsius. I mean, I invested in over 30 projects in ICO, held coins since 2013. So I was very lucky to be there early enough, but when I was thinking about exactly the same question you were asking, I said, no one is doing it, I'm going to go in and do it, because if I want my coins to be valuable, I need to solve this equation. I need to solve the problem of getting to mass adoption, because the value of our coins has direct correlation to how many users we have. How big is our community? And right now, our community is stuck. We're adding a lot of people, but we're also bleeding a lot of people, all these tourists who came and left back to fiat land.
Yeah, we should be keeping on to that. Although that might be a little bit contentious with what their, views are and what their hopes are, but
they came for the wrong reasons. So you know that.
But we should be turning to the right reasons. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about is, users today. With a lot of different interviews, we're talking about what is this killer app? What is it that we really need to tell the community about and consumers? And a general consensus is that we're looking for something that is easy to use, as you kind of said, the Netscape. It's, you look at it and it's like, well, yeah, I get what I'm doing.
A browser.
Yeah, exactly, great. It's, user intuitive. It's something you can pick up and use.
Yes.
Where cryptocurrency, there's still a lot of this kind of like, how do I get into it? How do I open a wallet? How do I actually begin, adopting it? So what would you say the number one, like, if we were to look for a killer app, what kind of app is it we're looking for? What kind of company? Is it a partnership of companies or?
Right, so I also had a slide about that, talking about the infrastructure guys versus the dApps. And when you read most of the blogs, I think including yours, you see that most people still think that the infrastructure play is a safe play, that is the right way to create value, and the next big innovation is going to come from there. We have over 130 blockchains. I don't think we need more of those. I think actually that the right dApp is going to be the killer app. But the browser was a dApp, So it implemented protocols, it implemented algorithms, it implemented all kind of other stuff. But it gave you that interface, user interface, that really made it easy for you to join the internet revolution.
Basically. Yeah.
So here we think that, again, for us, it's all about financial solutions. I don't think that the crypto revolution is here ready to solve healthcare or to solve shipping or to solve all kind of other stuff. So these are going to be financial solutions that make the world a better place. So let me give you a few examples. We talked about the banks giving you 1% and charging you 25%.
Yes.
Well, why can't we all get together, all of us in the community, create our own bank, right? A community bank, right? Huddle all of our coins together, put them in a giant pile, create a proof of stake that we have these assets, and then use those assets to lend to our community. And instead of trying to charge as much as possible, trying to charge the right amount to bring as many people to the community as possible. Because if your goal is to make the community as big as possible, for example, 1 billion people, then you're going to charge as little as possible, not as much as possible. And the banks can't compete with that. So we decided to charge 9%. We said, okay, we're going to huddle everybody's coins. We're going to put them in cold storage, which is a much safer place to be than on exchanges or somewhere else. And we're going to use that asset pool to lend fiat to all the people who currently just can't join the crypto revolution because they don't have enough dollars. They can't buy 100 ETH and just park it somewhere. So buy the ETH, put it with us. We'll give you dollars when you need them. And if you don't need the loan, you can earn interest. Not 1% or 2%. How about 5% or 6%? Why? If we're charging 9, we can give you back 5 or 6.
Of course, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the community. It's a win for the borrowers. It's a win for the lenders, right? Because all the value creation is staying inside the circle. And who's losing? The pyramid over there, who's charging you 25%. So that's benefit number 4. So the beauty of this model is that everybody in the community wins. And most people think about it and say, oh, this can't be true. I mean, there's got to be a scam here somewhere. Well, nobody really thinks it's a scam. Okay, but if you look at how the profit is generated, where is it generated? By the community members who pay interest, who gave us crypto collateral. So every loan is asset backed, right? You know you're going to have almost zero default on that.
Yes.
And then you basically, again, lend and earn interest against that. So I think that for us, we think that is a killer app. Why is it a killer app? Because if there's 7.5 billion people on this planet, 7.5 billion people need access to credit. Over 6 billion of them are underbanked. It means they might even have a credit card, they might have a bank account, but when they ask for a loan, they can't get it. And the reason for that is ridiculous. Like when you ask yourself, okay, why when I applied for a loan with the bank, they rejected me? It's because they rather give that money to the very rich, right? The risk that a very rich guy is not going to pay me is much lower than a guy who just started his job a month ago.
Of course,
or lost his job a month ago, right? So the way, for example, in the United States, that the banks use credit checks to decide how much credit to give you, really the credit check is about how much they can screw you, because all they're doing is, if you have a low credit score, they know they can charge you a lot on that credit card. You know, I have a very high credit score, so I get my credit at 12%. But if you have a low one, they'll charge you 25%. Right? And then when you come and complain, they say, oh, it's not us. It's that credit score company. They told us you're a high-risk guy.
Yeah.
So we don't check credit. We don't care about credit score. Because you want to be part of the community, you're going to collateralize something. You're going to give us some collateral. We will lend you against it. Prove to us you're a good actor, and we will continuously increase how much credit should be issued to you. You know, what really got me going on this in a positive way, right, is what I was looking at microloans being issued in India and Pakistan and Africa, and the repayment rate was higher than in the United States. The default rate for JP Morgan credit cards is higher than the default rate in India for people who borrow $10 and $20. So what that tells you is that the human populace as a whole, that 7.5 billion people, 99% are good actors. You just have to worry about that 1% that really causes 20% of the losses. And what we can do in the community is, again, through this proof of stake mechanism, create a mechanism that really only invites and encourages the good actors and discourages the bad actors. And then you can do things for very, very low fees, because, again, Celsius is focused on maximizing the community, not maximizing profits.
So, you know, these banks already, they have like a large platform to get their voice out there. Just call up their friends and get one of the interviews on to talk about, you know, the crypto world.
So there was a great survey done in the United States just, I think, a month ago. And they started comparing, they asked millennials, like, is going to the bank worse than whatever, right? And they just kept raising it until they got all the way to going to the dentist.
Oh, God.
And most people said that going to the bank is a worse experience, is something people dread more than going to the dentist. That's the relationship that banks have with their clients. So it's ours to lose. It's the crypto's communities to lose. We don't need to do much. It's not like we have to work really hard to unlock you from a bank and convince you to move into crypto.
Yeah.
We're already there, exactly.
Just got to be provided the right kind of roadmap to come on board.
Make it easier for you to join in. Have your friends show you that it's not a scam. It's actually here to help you. And one important point, none of these financial guys represent your best interest. Your broker-dealer doesn't represent your best interest. Your insurance broker, he's trying to take as much money out of your pocket as possible. Your bank, he's trying to pay you as little as possible so he can lend it for as much as possible, right?
Yes.
So as individuals, we don't have anyone who's representing our best interest. Like, imagine if you had to get into a car and you could only get in if you knew exactly how the motor worked and everything else, right? No one would be driving. Or if you use voice over IP, only if you knew exactly how UDP and TCP/IP is used in the transport of all those packets, so you could actually talk to someone on the other side of the world, right? So most of the things we use every day, we don't need to understand how they work. So it's the same thing with financial services. Today, the financial institutions are taking advantage of us because we don't know how these things work. And we live in a world of global AI and cloud services where we could basically put a computer, one computer can serve millions of people and do everything in their best interest and say, you don't need to know how it works. We will take it from here. We know how it works and we will do everything in your best interest. We are your custodian. We only represent what's good for you. And that's what Celsius is about. We are a basket of services. We're only going to let in good stuff in that is always acting in your best interest. It's like Costco. You walk into Costco after pay membership, and everything you don't need to check the price on orange juice or toilet paper or a package to go overseas. They're looking after you. So that's what's missing. And so we're not trying to create a bank. We're trying to create someone who cares for you. You sleep or you're awake, it works for you 24 hours a day, without you knowing the entire global economic theory.
Yeah, I don't think everyone would be able to get that by tomorrow,
yes.
or even the crypto world. And that brings me actually onto an interesting question. It's, there's been talk in the community about, should we be calling ourselves continuously crypto companies and blockchain companies, or should we just be financial companies and, you know, healthcare companies? Because does it really matter in the end what's behind the scenes, or is it really the service that takes priority? What's your kind of opinion on that?
Well, it's a marketing question, and I'm not an expert marketeer, but my guts is saying that if you kind of try to mellow it down or kind of hide inside the financial services umbrella, then you're not communicating why this is so unique and special, why it's a revolution.
Because
you're basically just saying, look, this is an incremental solution. You already have your bank, you have your insurance company, great, you should have a little bit of crypto. But that's not what this is all about. The millennials, the Gen X's, all these people are coming on, they're looking at all the debt that we created as a society, and they're saying, we don't want anything to do with it. So if you tell me you're part of that gig, I don't want anything to do with you.
Part of it,
you know, you guys keep that. You figure out how to pay all that debt back. So the bubble is really in the financial assets, right? The bubble is in the bond markets. The bubble is in the real estate market. The bubble is in the stock market. All those assets are at all-time highs. So those are the giant bubbles. Those are hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of bubbles. And you have to think of the crypto world as a pin that's coming and blowing up that bubble. People are calling crypto the bubble. Crypto is 500 billion in total assets. If it entirely disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. No one would notice. There were companies bigger than that failed. Lehman Brothers was bigger than the entire crypto world.
It's a very, very good point.
So we are not the problem here. You know, we are not the cause or the effect, right? The bubble built on these pyramids for the last 700 years of centralization, where the Fed and financial institutions had to be reflated out of trouble again and again and again, yet creating even a bigger bubble, right? Every time we reflate ourselves out of trouble, all we're doing is creating a larger bubble, right? So there is a whole movement out there that says enough is enough. We're mad as hell. We're not going to take this anymore. Right? So I'm part of that movement.
I mean, I'm glad you are. It's really inspiring to see someone that actually comes from, you know, the kind of traditional building several very successful companies who have exited and moving into this field. And I believe personally also that is what we need. So it's
funny that you say that, because I have 3 sisters. And one of them, she's one of the libertarians. She wants to save the world. And she called me and said, I watched one of your videos. And Alex, I know you for 50 years or 40 years, and I just don't believe you. You were an expert at building this pyramid. Now you're talking about
taking it apart.
Exactly, dismembering these pyramids. And I don't know what you're talking about. This is not the brother I have. So, you know, I call it decentralized Buddhism, right? That you get to the point where you realize, you know, just like Buddha did, right? That asset accumulation is meaningless. It's futile. It gets you nothing. It's like the guy that dies with the most toys. So what? If you spent your entire time on this earth just taking, right? Then why are you living? What's the value? What value do you bring to this planet? So I unfortunately spent 50 years taking, and I hope that my next 50 years is all about giving back.
I mean, I would love to be part of your Buddhist school and learn from you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No worries.